Welcome back to Saturday Social, where we are joined by Flex and Loz. Now, I'm very excited about this part because the transfer window slammed shut last night. Great deadline day, wasn't it?
One of the best in ages.
It was one of the best in ages, I would agree with that, actually, yeah. And the Saturday Socialist whiteboard is out. We're going to get the guests to rank every Premier League club's transfer window, Joe. Few little rules for this one.
Yeah, pretty simple ones, though. A to E, A being the best, E
Yeah.
being the worst. You've got to have 2 clubs at least in each category. So you
Right.
can't just put everybody in C. We'll
Yeah.
go
Spanner in the
alphabetical
works.
order.
No offence. We don't want
No
everyone in
offence
C.
in.
We
Just
no
give everyone a
offence.
fair C and
Yeah.
just see what happens. Yeah.
Average.
Yeah.
At the end as well, we're going to ask you which one club you think sort of won the window, the best window. So we'll start in alphabetical order, and we'll start with Arsenal, who were busy with incomings and outgoings.
Interesting one with Arsenal. I think that I had them down personally as like a C before the Sterling deal. They still do need that, maybe that goal scorer at number 9, or they've been crying out for it. A lot of the noise have been about that. But I think they've been really smart in terms of making an already very, very strong back four even stronger. Mikel Merino coming in, unfortunately getting injured straight away, but him coming in is almost like a Xhaka replacement, which they haven't quite had, but can play deeper. So there's options there. You've still got Jorginho. And I honestly think people are sleeping on this Raheem Sterling deal. I think it's a fantastic move for the player and the manager. It's a manager who really likes Raheem Sterling, really respects him. You're bringing in a 4-time Premier League winner, a Premier League goal scorer. He's scored 136 Premier League goals, so he knows his way about the place. And around the squad and the influence he can have in the dressing room and in those big pressure moments, those big pressure games, in a stable outfit, which Chelsea haven't been since Raheem Sterling's been there, played under multiple managers. Clear vision, clear style of play. I think Sterling's going to flourish. So I would give
agree
Arsenal a
with
B.
you.
Yeah. Sadly, I'm going to have to agree.
Yeah.
At one point, I was wondering if they got, say, like there was a late run for a striker, like a Tony or an Osimhen, someone like that. I think you're going to A, just because that would have solved a problem that every
You
week
both
when I watch
mentioned
Arsenal. I
that
think
striker situation. So you think that is an area that they could have addressed?
Scored
is
a
that
lot of
what you're
goals, though. Scored
I
their
don't think
record
it's
amount of Premier
that.
League
I don't
goals.
think
last
it's the
season.
score-
key component.
But the thing with scoring a record amount of goals is good. They unleashed on a lot of teams last season, but there were also times when they struggled to unlock a couple of people, or they didn't have that other option where it was like, right, let's get a bit more route one almost and aggressive. I know that obviously Arteta spoke about A1, 2, and it not being about A, B, C, D, E, and I get that, which I think is why they brought in Raheem Sterling. Raheem, like you said, amazing goal-scoring record, but scores the kinds of goals that might make up some of those numbers.
Big
And
moments goals.
Yeah, he's not. I think a lot of people think, oh, he'll just be a replacement for one of the 2 wingers, which is obviously a good option. But I also think there's moments where we'll see him pop up in the middle of the park and finishing off really good Arsenal moves, which is what we've seen at the start
It's
of the
just
season.
that there's a
anyway.
big debate about the Sterling deal, about what kind of form, where's he going to play. But I think for Arsenal's perspective, it's such a good deal because it's a loan that Chelsea's still covering some of the wages anyway. So it's almost like it's
amazing.
win-win for Arsenal.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
Because-
absolutely.
Absolutely win-win.
Yeah.
And Sterling, make no mistake, he will be really, really upset with maybe the way he's been treated and the type of situation that he found himself in. So he will have a point to prove at Arsenal.
I think they've had a good window.
Good
Arsenal.
outs as well, by the way. Some
Yeah.
very
Good,
decent,
yeah.
some decent fees there. Let's go to Villa.
Yes, that's the Villa.
I like Aston Villa anyway. Just the size of the project, where they're going with it, and obviously the fact they've made it into Europe this season. They had to do something solid in the off-season, as I'll call it. I like a lot of the signings in the first place, and I think they've strengthened exactly where they need strengthened, and moved on a couple of people they probably need to move on. You have people like Felipe Coutinho sitting there, and it was kind of like, what are we doing here, lads? So I think, again, there's kind of a transition B+ area for me with Villa. I don't think they made like any bombastic signings.
I really like that Onana deal. I think the Onana signing is like
It's a great one.
It looks like he's going to elevate as well.
It's
Because
a punchy one, isn't it? 'Cause
Yeah.
other teams like Arsenal, United were interested in him.
The only thing I'd say is he's not going to score on every corner. Can we just stop saying that every corner Onana
He's
is
a
going to
massive
score?
threat
It's
from.
not the way
Ian
it works.
Matson, fantastic signing as well from Chelsea.
Where are you going to put him?
B for me.
B, I could
B as well?
agree with that.
Okay,
Okay,
Start with
let's
B.
head on
Are we being
to
too nice?
Bournemouth, alphabetical order, of course.
Lost
Bournemouth,
Solanke.
obviously, big money that they recouped for Solanke, but they brought in Evan Nilsson, Sinistera, amongst others as well. Where do you rank Bournemouth from the A to E category?
I think the way they've spread the money around from Dominic Solanke's sale, I would say is really good. I think Areola, he's got a lot of interesting ideas, and they play on the front foot. And he's bought some players in who can fit that style. We have to wait to see the sample size of whether they transpire into having the exact impact that he wants. It's hard to give them
Why?
It's hard to give them an A, and I think a C's too low. I would go a B again.
Sorry, Smithy, but we're just going to
We're
have
not
to
just
go
gonna have
B.
everyone in
We've got to
B,
put a B
are we?
So
again.
you go B, even though they've lost, 18 goal a season striker.
Yeah.
Like that's a big moment for them, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, but I feel
know
that
it's a
they
big
had
fee.
to. I mean, to get that
Fourth
money
joint
for
top
him.
scorer in the Premier League last season. There's a lot of goals out of the team.
It is. But I think the way they've reinvested it, I've got faith that actually they've made the right decisions with the types of
Do you
players.
think
they've brought
as
in.
good a window as Arsenal and Villa?
It's relative. Because I'm saying that they've got to be. I'm not saying that Bournemouth can now compete for Europe or compete for the Premier League. But in terms of the best way Bournemouth could have spent that money, I think they've done a good job.
It's all about relativity, Joe.
Wherever you want to put it then?
Relativity, yeah.
B again.
Wow.
Some people, I mean...
Joe, do they understand the rules? You've got to have one in every category.
I know.
It's early on, though, guys. Come
I
on,
know.
you're
It
not
is.
giving us
It
enough
is
opportunities.
early.
You've only seen 3.
Brentford.
Yeah. I've got to say a B, I think. Well, no, literally. I think the thing with Brentford is they were always going to be stuck between a rock and a hard place with the kind of the stalling of whatever was going on with Ivan Toney.
What did you make of that? Obviously, Ivan Toney, it's the amount of clubs that were linked with him previously. He's now gone to Saudi at a time when, he's in and around the England squad. Obviously, there's a lot of money that was on offer. What did you make of that specific move?
I think it's difficult because the media coverage of Ivan Toney is obviously he's had some personal issues and everyone is incredibly sympathetic towards what he's gone through. But at the same time, he's a player that fit Brentford really well as a profile. And then when other bigger teams were profiling him, going, oh, well, could he do a job for us? Say a Liverpool, Arsenal, any of that level, they were probably thinking that there was a better option for better money. Not because he's not worth good money, but because Brentford wanted a lot of cash for him. So there were going to be so few places that they could send him, apart from obviously somewhere where they've just got unlimited amounts of cash. And that probably limited the rest of their window. And I've got to admit, after seeing them live at Anfield last week, it sometimes looks as if they're still playing with Ivan Toney and they haven't quite moved on from
Where
that.
would you have him then? With no Ivan.
I'm going to go C because I still think they've bought a couple of guys in, and obviously I know a couple of those names from Liverpool in Fabio Carvalho and Sepp van der
They've
Berg.
bought in some decent players.
Yeah, they have, yeah.
And
They
I think those are the kind of signings where, especially with a coach like Frank, you're going to be able to coach them up. But it's a kind of only time will tell thing. It's not like we're going, oh my goodness, Fabio Carvalho, that's incredible.
Next
Okay,
one.
let's go to Brighton then. They've been very busy in the window
Love
this
it.
season. A lot of Brighton fans very excited with some of the names they've brought in. Where would you
200 million.
rank
Let's go, Brian.
their window?
Unbelievable window. I mean, and a real pivot from the usual Brighton strategy. What we tend to see Brighton do is get relatively unknown players for very, very low costs from abroad.
Who turn out to be
Who turn out to go for 50, 100,
yeah.
etc., etc. It's almost like they've banked that money now for the last couple of windows and gone really, really big with a new manager, Fabian Hertzler, who's younger than probably all of us, apart from Joe. And their team looks really, really exciting. I think it helps when you start in the fashion that they have, obviously beating Everton and Manchester United respectively.
Where would
But,
you put 'em?
I'm going to say an A. I'm going to say it's the first A of
Happy
the
with
day.
that, Lars?
Yeah, because it isn't just about how much money they've spent, but how well they've spent that,
Yeah.
almost 200 million as well. And I think it's also a testament to the way the club's been run over the last few years, and maybe we should congratulate those teams
I think that's
who do
actually
that
a
kind of
good
thing.
point because people look at they spent 200 million, but actually relative to the players like Minter for 25 million, Matt
Exactly.
O'Reilly for a relatively cheap outlay for the players that they've bought in. So
I've really
they
got to
agree on
say,
A.
Chelsea?
I'm disappointed with the fact that he got injured so quickly.
Oh, yeah,
I think it was
same.
so
Yeah.
vicious on
Yeah.
him. I felt really bad for him because I was actually really excited to see him in the Premier League.
Now we need a bit of time on the next club because there's so much to dissect.
We're going to list the squad, is that what you're
Chelsea.
saying?
Yeah. Can you name every player?
Yeah.
I mean, so much going on at Chelsea. What do you make of the whole window that Chelsea have had?
Chelsea have changed their strategy overall at the club as to how they recruit and sell players. And I think a lot of people misrepresented that when it first started happening, purely for headlines, purely for clicks. You know what I'm saying? If you look at them, who Chelsea have actually signed, the weapons they've given to Enzo Maresca, I think the only thing they still lack is a clinical striker. And that's why they can't be an A.
And the goalkeeper situation is still up in the air as well.
Sure,
Well,
but
they've made their decision, but I don't think the quality of why they should be the two glaringly obvious positions, like say striker and I'd goalkeeper, and I still like.
So where does
question
that
marks.
overall put that club?
I think that puts them in. I think that puts them between B and C, but I'm going to have to put them in C because of what Chelsea's expectations were. So I'm not saying they're much worse than Bournemouth, but because Chelsea expected to be better, it's a C.
And clearly, what we can see with the pursuit of Victor Osimhen,
yeah,
right down to the last
They
hour.
wanted a number
They
nine.
clearly wanted a number 9.
It
They've
was
ended up
silly.
with João Felix after trying to get Omarodian, which was the original plan. That didn't work out, so João Felix wasn't the plan. They've got a late deal for Jadon Sancho.
Having sold Sterling on loan, then Sancho comes in.
The way they've treated Sterling and what's happened there, that was a bit of a catastrophe. So a lot going on, but essentially though, their first 11.
What I would say is some exciting players
Palace.
that they have.
Yes.
have
Yeah,
got
they've
there.
definitely
They have
signed
got
some high-level
exciting players.
players.
Crystal Palace. Obviously, big news with Palace, I suppose, is that the fact they kept on Mark Gay here. It's very rare that you see a club with 3 or 4 bids that then don't get over the line. They've kept Gay, they've kept Eze as well.
Yeah,
And
good money for Elise as well.
Yeah.
Bought in, let go of Anderson as well, which is a big one. I like the signing of Ismail Assar as well. I think that's going to go under the radar. It was around 15 million. When you lose a player of the quality of Elise, there's a lot of pressure on that player to come
I
in.
like
but I think
Chalobah,
Sarr-
I like
Eddie
Nketiah
Nketiah as well.
I like
I think they've
Lacroix.
done
They've done some
deals.
really, really
Done
good
it right
business.
there.
I'm going to say,
Where would you put 'em?
considering it could have been sort of like a bring and buy sale at Palace where they could have lost everyone. Steve Parish was really, really strong with their valuation for Mark Gahey. I'm going to say a B.
Okay, let's get them up. Let's
Yeah,
go
I'd
to
agree with
the
that.
next
Yeah,
club,
that's good.
which is Everton. Loz?
A bad window in that I think Everton are in stasis at the moment. They don't know where they're going as a club. And I think just from where they're at, they kind of deserve a D or an E, don't they?
So
Because
which one would you go?
it feels unfair to say to our neighbours E, so I'm going to go D, just purely because I think the club are a mess right now and they don't deserve it. Not that the fans don't deserve it, they obviously deserve much better than this, and the stadium looks incredible.
It's
and everything,
really
but
alarming.
It's a mess at that club, and those guys deserve better.
Although
The takeover needs
Do
to
you like
happen.
the Timo Regmanen deal? I really
Yeah,
think
you
he's
like him, don't you?
excellent
Not
player.
enough to tip them up.
Okay.
One of the latest deals as well, bought Brozer in, didn't we?
Yeah.
Thought he was going elsewhere, but
Sure.
Bridge brought him in on
That is a
loan
smart one, yeah.
from Chelsea.
Fulham.
Next up, Fulham.
Good window.
The
for
likes of
Fulham,
Smith Rowe, Anderson, Reece Nelson, Ryan Sessegnon.
Sanderberg.
Sanderberg, yeah.
Sanderberg.
Anderson. I think they've had an excellent window.
obviously have
I
lost
really, really
Paulinho,
do.
who's
When you lose
massive for
someone
them.
as good as Paulinho, again, there's certain players, especially, and no disrespect to Fulham, but they're very unlikely he's going to get a like for like. Very unlikely to do that. But again, it's how you spread out, the valuation of that player. And I think what they've done is they've added a calmness to their midfield. And a goal threat in terms of Emil Smith-Rowe. You look at Zanderberg. Yes, he's not as good as Paulinho, but understands that position well and can bring an element of calmness. Bringing in Reece Nelson, I think, is a really good, smart signing.
Yeah.
And Anderson as well. He's been at the club already and knows all of what it's about. So
Where are you putting him?
I'm going to say an A.
Wow.
I'd be happy if you
Wow.
put them up
I'm
in
going to
A.
say an A. I think they've had a really good window.
I don't think they're going to kick on under Marcus.
Respectively.
Fair. An A, I
Okay.
think it's an A. It's an amazing window if they've lost Paulinho
Yeah.
and Willian
If you're not feeling it in the same way, then
and Tosin.
What would you
That's
have
your
him?
list?
What would you have him as a B?
It's your list. It's your list. Let's keep
see?
going
Yeah,
on. Let's get to it.
yes.
your roast.
We want some positivity.
Yeah,
Big up
absolutely.
all the
Speaking of
Fulham fans.
positivity, and I think you made an interesting point about relativity
Yes.
based
Yeah.
on clubs. You've got to bear in mind Ipswich. I read a stat recently that eight of their starting squad from the first game against Liverpool were playing for Ipswich in League One. So you've got to bear that in mind of how far they've come in a short space of
Unbelievable,
time.
back to back.
So some of the names they've brought in with Prem experience, I think they've had quite a solid window. Don't
I
you?
agree with that. I also think that it's sometimes you need a little bit of time to work out how well the window's actually gone for them, see where they fit different pieces in. Coaching-wise, they're fantastic, and let's be realistic. Even if Ipswich were to go down this season, they'd probably come up the next
I
season on
totally
100
agree.
points.
Yeah.
I think they've bought basically the best players out of the Championship. Jack
Yeah.
Clark, Jacob Greaves,
Sammy
Sammy
Smodics.
Smodics. Like they've
yeah.
been so smart with their recruitment for future years potentially. Where are we putting them?
Got Delap, Hutchinson. I think they've done well.
I'm going to go B on that one. I don't think it's... you probably could relatively go A for Ipswich
Yeah.
and just say what you've done is really smart. So maybe
Let's
for
do it.
smartness, they deserve
Let's
an A.
do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Honestly.
Nice.
Fair play.
Love the positivity.
I like
Yeah.
it. I like it a lot.
Does
Let's
it
go on
continue
to
with
Leicester.
Does it continue with Leicester?
Leicester, I mean, before the last couple of deals they got over the line last night in Edouard and
Odsonne Edouard, Palace on loan, yeah.
They really did need reinforcements, but I mean, Vardy on the energy drinks at half-time, I think is still going to be needed. And that's no disrespect to
Lost
Edouard
Kieran
coming in.
Dewsbury-Hall
but
as well.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oliver Skip coming in will add some little bit of midfield steel alongside Skip and Ndidi, but I still think quality-wise they are lacking. I'm going to go with D.
Lars,
They
your
needed
thoughts?
to do more, I agree. And I know it's obviously they're in a difficult position. You move the manager on, D sounds about right for me.
Okay.
Not to punish them.
No.
Liverpool, Loz. Let's just come to you on this one. Where would you
Quiet
put
during
your-
this window.
club?
Obviously, signing Chiesa, I think, is a no-lose deal. Really cheap player who clearly wants to be there. If you look at all of his interviews, I think they would have
Yeah.
loved to get a Zubamendi, someone like that. Obviously, they would love to get a Zubamendi. But in the meantime, I think Gravenberch and possibly one or two other Liverpool players can fill in that 6 double pivot type position. This was an assessment summer and a summer where I think they consolidated, didn't get rid of, but moved on a lot of young players or guys who were maybe still hanging around from that Klopp era and weren't going to get into the first team, and have managed to loan out a couple of guys like Bajcetic and those kind of guys to possibly come back in the future and make the squad up. This Liverpool side are never going to spend a huge amount of money unless they're sure about it, and I think actually they deserve credit for that rather than just going out there and buying a profile. It's very clear they've got a strategy, and I think you should congratulate that rather than scattergun.
Where would you have them then?
I'm going to have to go C because I think C is kind of average, isn't it? And I don't think Chiesa is quite enough, but I also think there's a bit of an under the radar type.
Good value for money as well. Worth pointing out what he would have been worth 3 years ago after the Euros that he had and the breakthrough.
City?
Manchester City, yeah, I'm going to straight off the bat say C. I think that they were in a little bit of trouble with some of the injuries before Gundogan and, obviously Savina was there already. They're always in this precarious position where they're so good and Pep Guardiola finds so many answers to so many questions that we should never really bet against them, even when the chips are down. But I think bringing in Gundogan back on a free
Do you have to take
fantastic.
into account the sales as well? I feel like they've sold again
They
brilliantly.
always do.
Alvarez,
Delap for
80
19 million.
Yeah, they've sold an absolutely monumental amount of money.
And the profit they've
over
made on
100
those.
million in profit.
Do you know what? Actually, that's a really good point. Overall, I think by the time, honestly, mate, Gundogan coming back on a free, he's just going to pick up where he's left off. He'll score goals.
Savio as well,
you understand,
good,
and
isn't
he just looks like a Mahrez regen.
I think you also have to factor in with Man City is there's not a lot that they need as well because they've got such strength and depth in so many positions. You do have to factor in that they don't need to spend 100, 150 million because they've got talent everywhere.
When we were speaking though, Loz, I don't know, I felt like you was a little bit more...
I think a couple of people are worried about the future for City, and at the moment with everything being in the balance, not only in terms of off the pitch stuff, but Pep Guardiola as well. I think they are struggling to attract a couple of players, frankly, and I also think a couple of the big profiles are probably looking at it and going,
Really?
If Pep goes, then what next?
So you're saying that Manchester City are less attractive now? Like they're struggling to get the big names, would you say?
I think it might only be a temporary state. If they bring in another good manager and they've got a 5-6 year plan, then fantastic. But I don't think we can assume that when Pep leaves, then everything's going to be cushy for them.
But on this window, though, we're judging it on.
Absolutely.
It's
But
still
what I'm saying-
attractive.
but-
Man City is still one of the best clubs in world football.
Players still want
We're
to
going
go
to
there.
push you. Let's get them on the board.
I think there's more complex things to discuss
going
with
B or
City.
C?
I go C.
Okay.
Behind the scenes, I think they can. They could
hoping
do
it'll
better.
Worse window than Bournemouth. Wow.
No, it's all relative though, isn't it?
Okay.
Okay, next up. Flex, we'll come to you on this. You're the United fan. I imagine you're pretty happy.
I'm very, very happy with Ineos's first window in Sporting Control at United. I think they've addressed so many areas, a lot off the field in terms of wage structure, player profiles, players who are surplus to requirements, the age of players. I think they've also addressed most positions that we need. The only thing that I'm missing is probably an out-and-out left-back, but Mazraoui's come in and can kind of help us in that department because you can shift Allo to the other side. I think Lenny Yoro is one for the future, which was a fantastic opportunity signing, which they seized the moment in. I think the fees that Manchester United have paid for players, all below £50 million, with Yoro with an exception by a couple of million quid, I think have been absolutely brilliant. And I think even if it doesn't work out with Ten Hag, I think what we're seeing is a clear strategy that even if something happened and Ten Hag was to leave, which I don't want to happen, but if it was, Manchester United have made good decisions on the pitch. So I'm not going to go an A. I'm going to just not do that Man United fan thing when we get a little bit too ahead of ourselves.
We've had a lot of good windows in the past, and we've had a lot of good
Xerxes is a
windows.
genius.
We'll give it to
Solid
Flex,
B.
this one as a United fan. He goes with B. And we'll come to Loz for Newcastle. Obviously, we spoke about the Gahey deal, didn't get over the line. What have you made of Newcastle's? Because it's been quite a quiet window for them, hasn't it?
I think they've been hamstrung a little bit with where they're at in terms of
PSR as well.
Yeah, PSR, those kind of things. The fact that they came away, I think they made a profit overall in this window, didn't they?
Yeah, narrowly.
Just.
But I think that was kind of the point for them in these few windows. They know that
But
everyone's...
they were bidding for Gahey.
They were,
Consistently.
Which would have been a
For
record
big
signing,
fee.
yeah.
I think it's been an awful window for Newcastle, and a window where, ironically, Dan Ashworth left the football club after a long battle with Manchester United. Paul Mitchell comes in. Manchester United have a fantastic window with Dan Ashworth at the helm, and Newcastle go on to have a really, really poor window. I thought that was ironic.
You'll say what you see, mate. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So where are you going to put him?
I'm going to say this is the first E of the day, because you don't go for Mark Gahey all window, when you know the price that Palace want, Steve Parish was very, very clear in what they needed to do. They didn't do it. They end up not having reinforcements in that area with big injuries at centre-half.
They're under-equipped.
And on the right wing, it's still Almiron. So,
Okay.
Okay, Forest.
They're playing Football Manager right now, aren't they? So you can't judge it yet. Let's go C and hold them there.
Yeah.
I think that's fair,
I think
right?
Milenkovic was a good deal.
Yeah.
Ward-Prowse on deadline day, a pretty
Yeah.
smart bit of business as well. Overall, the squad looks in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I don't know if it takes them up or anywhere. Does it
Let's
change
go
the position
to-
massively? Not really.
Let's go to Southampton, who are busy. Obviously brought in Aaron Ramsdale, Flynn Downs permanently, Harwood Bellis. They're quite busy, weren't they? Maxwell Cornet on loan. Cameron Archer.
Yep.
Quite busy, Southampton.
Yep, I like what they've done. I would say a C as well. I think they've brought in some decent players and they've sold well. You know, I saw Alcaraz go back to
Yeah,
Brazil
they've brought
for
in a
really
lot
good
of
money
players
as
as
well.
well.
They have, yeah.
And the one thing I'll say about Southampton is they've managed to get the players that were so successful for them on loan back again, like Harwood Bellis, like Flynn Downs. I would even potentially think about them a bit high, but I don't want to speak for your list.
Halfway.
again.
Yes, your list.
So,
Just
yeah.
to
Young
reiterate.
centre-backs as well, young English centre-backs that are doing really well. So, yeah, I agree.
Tottenham.
I'm going to be honest, Smithy. I think it's been a bit meh for Spurs.
Need a bit more, you think?
I think need a bit more. I will put them in the D category.
Wow.
I would.
D?
I would.
You seem to disagree with that, Loz.
Because of the solid windows they'd had previously, I think it was probably difficult to add the level of depth that they need to. But I agree, they probably did need to bring in a little bit more. D seems a little bit harsh for me.
want
Like,
to see
I'd kind of put them in this
halfway
similar
again.
like, transitional.
Well, let's make up a
Southampton
new
house.
category.
What is going on?
Loz
There's
is making
no
up new
in-between
categories here.
categories.
No, it's
You've got to make a decision on Southampton and Spurs.
Those aren't the rules, mate. Those
Southampton
aren't the rules.
Spurs,
They
you
are,
need
they
a
are.
decision on.
You've
Come on.
got to make a decision on Southampton and Spurs. You bumping Southampton up?
Put
and
Southampton in
Spurs-
C and Spurs in D.
Yeah,
Spurs
there you
and
go.
D.
Wow,
Yeah.
Spurs and
The
D.
likes of
They-
Bergvall
Similar
and
column.
Gray and Odegaard, some exciting young players coming through, you not think?
And Solanke, they
it's
needed
not
a number
enough.
9, didn't they?
Number
They've
nine.
gone out and spent big on a number 9.
Did they need a
don't
number
see
9?
it.
Yeah, I mean, did
Yeah, I mean, they never replaced Harry Kane.
I think they
did
do need
Richarlison
number
and
9,
Son
but
playing
I'm
through the
not
middle
sure it's
didn't
going
quite
to be
suit.
Dominic Solanke is the right fit.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
A couple of
Spurs
games in,
fans
fair
right now
play to you.
get involved. Let us
Yeah.
know.
There we go.
West
Let us know
Ham.
what you think. Let us know. West Ham, obviously, extremely busy transfer window. But where would you place them?
I think they've had a very, very solid window. I know I've been throwing out a lot of A's, but I think that actually true. I think they've done really well. They've added experience. They've added Premier League quality. They've really backed Lopetegui, and with what they've already got in terms of the attacking players of Paquetá, Bowen, Kudus, to add what they've added in terms of Somerville, Fulkrug, different type of striker. Might struggle with the pace, but I think they spread their money really well.
I think they've shown that their strategy can change and they will improve
A for
under
you.
that strategy.
Yeah.
So A for me.
Good window. Finally,
Yeah.
Wolves. Remember, we did say you needed 2 in
Yeah.
every category was the rules at the start. You can move 1 or 2 about if
Oh,
needed.
okay then.
You think they have lost Pedro Neto, they have lost
Yeah.
Lost the
captain
2
Max
best players.
Kilman as well.
I think perspective needs to be put into perspective here.
Perspective into perspective.
But you need to bear in mind, obviously,
Yes.
the players that they've lost and the finances they've operated. I think Gary Neal's done an amazing job.
didn't
by the way.
get Andre through the door though
They did,
yesterday.
yeah.
They did, which was a big,
highly
big signing.
rated.
That's
And like
really
you said, lost
interesting.
Kilman, lost Neto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think I probably would have had them at a D, but actually, because we've got the rules are the rules,
Could we
let's
kind of
swap
do
those
that
2.
maybe, yeah?
I think that's probably
so there's your
right.
confirmation.
Maybe
Yeah.
Everton
You
down
think,
the
you
road.
think Andre jumps them just up above?
Probably, yeah. I like the Andre signing. It's kind of mysterious.
Well, there is confirmation of Loz and Flex's, just to reiterate, ranking every Premier League club's
Wow.
transfer window.
Wow.
Spurs and D's a bit harsh. So, just quickly, which clubs won the window for you? One club, would you say?
I'm going to say Arsenal because I think it pushes them over the edge.
But you've got
But
them
you
in
got
B.
them in
Flex makes no sense. Flex, who's won the window for
I'm
you?
going to say West Ham. I think
West
a
Ham.
new direction. I think an exciting time to be a West Ham fan.
OK, let's know what you think of those picks at home.